Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
It's all right, you can put your phone down. Someone interesting has arrived.
Ah, you're there. Well done.
I am here, you are there. We're back in the studio, or respective studio, and on the sofa. We are no longer in my flat. We were in my flat last week. Hello, everyone. Just welcome back to Drewling Samantics for another week of Drew and Sam on Zoom. Other video conferencing apps, I'm sure, are available, but we use this one because that's what we've always done. What a weird intro.
I mean, we know. We normally, let's be honest about it. We normally sort of try and think of a little interesting, amusing way of getting in. Yeah. But actually, all we've done is just sit down, put my phone down, you put your drink down, and we're just here. So which is quite nice. It's quite nice. Yeah.
Although I have to say, you and don't take this the wrong way, but you know you're doing the old person thing with your phone now, don't you? You know, when they sort of it moves further and further away, and you start looking down your nose, and
Actually, what I was trying to do was get it in shot. That's why I was where it was, because it was. I was getting.
I see. So you were planning things, were you? You were
I was planning
to make it more obvious. Yeah, basically exposing us as the frauds we are is what you were doing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Rubbish. We know you're just a blind old bat, and you're not going to prove otherwise with them bin lids on your face. Anyway, how are you, mate? All right.
I'm good. I'm I'm very excited. Because you know we had a lovely week last week at the flat, but this week, of course, it is guest week.
It is indeed, and a very amazingly lovely, brilliant, talented. Can you tell I work for him?
I was about to say, you work for this person. You work for them.
Yes. No, we've got the lovely Joe Potter joining us this week, who is the owner and creator of Trunk Theatre. But I'm not going to go any more into that or about how I know him or what's going on, because let's save that for when he's actually here, which, believe it or not, he is. Isn't that so seamless and smooth? And yeah, that's far better than the intro bit. The fact that he just suddenly appeared as I was talking about him. But and speaking of appearing, should we do that now? Should we
Let's do it. Let's do it, Sam.
So those of you that would like to see his face on YouTube, he's coming now. Those of you that would like to hear his wonderful voice over the airwaves, that's happening now as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you our latest fabulous guest, the wonderful Mr. Joe Potter. And there he is, joining us bright and early and looking rather wonderful, as always, if I may say so. And no, I'm not just sucking up because he's technically my boss. The wonderful Joe Potter is joining us on Drewling Samantics. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Drew. How's it going?
Very well, thank you, Joe. I've got to say, for someone that actually employs Sam Dunning, you are looking amazingly fresh, bright, youthful, fettered by this world.
When I first met him, I was a spring chicken. I used to be beautiful, and then I met Sam, and he's taken the best years from me, really.
Do you know, again, I've said this before. I don't know why I invite people on that I work with, because they just gang up on me with Drew.
I mean, Sam, you're wonderful. You're my favourite actor. But then, to be fair, you are my only actor.
Right. Okay. Right, thanks for that. Yes. And he's on the wine. Right, we're going to blame the wine for why Joe is being insulting.
No. Right, okay, so I had a beer. In the fridge. I don't usually drink beer, but I do have a beer in the fridge. And the thing was, it's a bit Voldemort. It's the name that shall not be spoken. The brand of the beer. It's not allowed to be said on this podcast.
Oh, I see. So
I'm not going to drink it. I'm not going to tempt fate, Oh,
I like it. So you have the unwelcome guest brand of
beer.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm not going to drink that. So I'm on the red.
Very good.
Very nice.
And equally, we try and avoid showing beer brands because they don't sponsor us. If anyone wants to sponsor us and provide us with free beer, then we will shout your name from the rooftops until the end of time. But until then, mine is completely unbranded. It's rather tasty. And Drew, I'm guessing you're on tea or coffee this morning, aren't you?
I'm on the coffee, mate, in the branded mug.
Oh, fantastic.
Merchandising is available. There we go.
Yeah, no, definitely we do sell merch.
We
We just
do.
don't
Yeah.
promote beer for free. Anyway, we've gone off topic immediately, which is fabulous because that's how we like to run things here. But to drag it back to where we are, this is the wonderful Mr. Joe Potter. No relation to a small wizard with glasses. We have to say that because we're not going to
Beatrice
promote that
was my
either.
grandmother.
Yeah, but an amazing performer, an amazing writer, an amazing boss. But rather than me trying to list the things you do and explain it, it's far easier if we say, Joe, tell everyone what you do, why you do it, and why you're here, I guess.
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, what am I? A director, a writer, an actor, a lover, a friend? I'm not sure. Well, okay. Oh God, you're going to be so bored of me by the end. So I started off. I'd always wanted to be an actor. It was my ardent dream. Apart from when I was very small and I wanted to be a jockey. And then I discovered I was going to be too tall to be a jockey, and my mother told me that it wasn't a sensible dream. And anyway, so she was the one who got me into acting, actually. She would take me to the Operatic Society, and I was in all of their musicals. So I was in Carousel and The Hot Mikado, and all of these things. And it opened up this whole world of theatre to me, which I just loved. And I think probably that was the happiest I'd ever been acting, when I was young and there was no kind of pressure involved in the situation, and there
Yeah.
wasn't the monetary pressure.
Mm.
But I went down the route as best I could. And I went through the usual channels, and I did youth theatre, and then I tried out for drama school, and I got into a couple of drama schools, and I ended up going to, where did I go? Arts Ed, in West London, which was great. And it was exactly like Fame. You'd go in, and there was, a girl doing box splits on the desk, and, someone was being dragged out of a classroom with a gun to their head, and people tap dancing in the corridors and
Well, it was
whatever.
West London, mate. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah, it was.
it's interchangeable.
Chiswick's a bizarre place. It's all like these like really old, rich people, and then a bunch of like really fancy drama students. But what I kind of liked about Art Ed when I was there was that it was a kind of a bit run down. And then they got millions of pounds in, and suddenly it became quite sort of elite, and a bit cool. And unfortunately, I think probably that's not a great thing for theatre. It's not a great thing for art. I think art needs the rough edges. When I go to a place that's too clean, I went to Vancouver once and there was no art anywhere, and I was like, and I was looking around, I was like, it's too bloody clean, it's too nice. There's no grit, there's no grind to make something here. No one was smoking, there was no graffiti. I was like, I don't want to be. Anyway, so I've gone on a tangent again. But yeah, and then I don't know. I'm gonna. Well, obviously you're here to interview me. I I tried to act for a long time, and I spent years doing the usual thing when you got out of drama school and you get an agent and you wait by the phone, and it's torturous.
Mm.
And really, I think I quit acting in 2017 or something, and I had failed. Like, I had really failed, and I was quite broken by the whole experience. And then I tried other things. I tried to be a painter, and I failed at that. And then I wrote a novel, and I failed at that. And I just thought, fuck, what am I going to do? I think the thing that really did it for acting for me was I got cast in a film. I got cast in this film in 2017, and it was called The Diary of an Alien. And I was to play, I got the part as this alien, right? And the alien was sort of like a shapeshifter, and he crash lands into the Thames, and then he walks out of the Thames naked, and he shapeshifts into me. Um, and so that was probably the first thing, having to walk naked out of the Thames, and like it was like February. And you're walking. Actually, it was quite clever what they did with they did all these alien footprints in the sand, and then they became human footprints, and then it pans up to me. But I was doing this film, and this, bless her, foolish woman who was directing it, it was her dream to make this movie. and she made the cardinal sin of filmmaking to put her own money into it. And the film was probably, probably 40 minutes long, and she put, I'd say, about 60 grand into it. And she, the crew was good, and her husband was like the first AD, and he was an accountant. He should have known better. And I could just see him slowly falling apart through this whole film because the film was terrible. The script was just crap, and there's nothing you can do with a bad script. And one of the last scenes we shot was me discovering myself in the mirror of a warehouse. So I'm naked in front of this mirror, and I'm sort of like feeling my body, my new exciting human body. And this warehouse was in Woolwich, and it was just grim, and it was just crap everywhere. And they'd had to literally brush heroin needles off the floor. And I'm literally naked, and then I'm in the mirror looking at this cracked, spotty old mirror, and you're being filmed from behind. And I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was sort of trying to do the scene, and all I could think was, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, get out!" Anyway, long story short, I thought, well, I think probably it's good to talk about agents probably here. In that agents, however anyone feels about them, they take your agency quite literally. And that's the worst thing about acting. The worst thing about acting isn't the rejection, although that is horrible.
Yeah.
The worst thing about acting is you've got no control. And I desperately wanted to have some control in the art I was making. So like I said, I went off and started writing and painting and sort of failing at that a bit. But I was happier because I had some agency over what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then years before, someone had asked me to write a play, commissioned me to write a play about the Great Fire of London. And it was sort of successful in Edinburgh. And I think they wanted me to make a play for about £20,000, and I made one for about £17.50. A
producer's dream.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because I wanted it to be for everybody, and I wanted, and that was quite a nice thing about Edinburgh, that it's sort of it's a bit ragtag, and you've got those nice constraints to it. But yeah, so I started this show, and then years later, after I was sort of given up on everything, I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a go. I'll rewrite the show, and I'll start again with this, because my whole family is in children's things, publishing, school. I mean, my sister works at Brighton College at the moment, and she works in the theatre department there. And I don't know. I thought, well, I'll give this a go and see what happens. And for some reason, it just took off, and it was really successful. I mean, I don't know, Sam. Why do you think the shows seem to work?
Well, I think the leading male actor probably carries the whole show, to be honest with you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's intriguing because I think. And we've sort of mentioned this before on the podcast. We've talked about theatre and education and other similar elements, but we all have different experiences of school and learning, and people all learn in different ways. But what is almost kind of universal is that very, very few people learn well from large chunks of text just being regurgitated, or constantly reading lots and lots of information and trying to sort of absorb that. There are lots and lots of children or adults, it doesn't matter who, that find things visually easier to understand and interpret and remember, and equally hearing things. I think the senses, we focus too much on mind and memory. I think a lot of the other senses need to be brought in to enable a child or to enable a person to learn. And theatre, when it becomes educational, is such an invaluable tool because it's memorable, particularly in the way we do it, where we get the children involved and they get to do activities within it or take part in things. That is something they will not forget, something that they will look back on and go, that was brilliant. And somehow, accidentally or whatever, they've learnt something by doing it. And I think that is the skill. Obviously, that's sort of generic across theatre and education, but I think particularly what Trunk Theatre, your company, do is involve the children, let them be part of things, let them really kind of take their own step into the worlds that we're bringing them to educate them on. And that's so memorable and so valuable that I think that is the best thing about Trunk. Equally, it's a great premise. So you'll explain it better than me, but it's called Trunk Theatre because everything comes from a trunk. And where did that actually come? Was that just a stroke of genius, or?
No, I remember doing a pantomime when I'd first got out of drama school. It was my first job, and it was sort of like, late December, and we're moving around these like set pieces at 8 o'clock in the morning at these schools. And I thought, you're on the road, and what was the best way to do this? And I just thought that's dreadful, and just so people really exploit actors, and having to do it's just not necessary. And I thought, what's the simplest way? What's the simplest, cleanest way I could get a whole show into something? And I thought was luggage. Put it in luggage. That's the portable thing. And also, there's something kind of romantic about it, I guess. All these 1940s suitcases, that kind of thing. It's simple. And I like the idea, and everyone should like the idea, of art under constraints. Art under constraints is a great thing. You only have to look at these great film directors, I don't know, Spielberg, whatever, and see the films that they're making now. And, I mean, has he made anything good in the last 20 years? Not really. Because it's too easy, because he's got too much. They're like, go have all the money, everything. And when that, I bet you, if you gave him 15 million quid and you said, that's it, that's all you've got to make a really good movie, he'd be like, cool, and he'd make something actually kind of innovative and interesting. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
No. And I think the constraint of a primary school is great because, first of all, you've got this kind of like natural light kind of lit room, and so you can't really have any lights particularly unless you go and like black everything out, and that's going to take ages, and then you've got to get on ladders, it's dangerous and whatever. And then you've got a bunch of children just sitting on the floor, and you've got to create atmosphere quite quickly, which obviously you can do in a number of ways. But I like the constraint of something being with a small space or with not much money. It makes you be so much more creative with what you're doing. And obviously the margins with school theatre are pretty small, So, but although I am pleased to say that I think I paid everyone a pretty good wage with what we're doing. I mean, I don't know, you might disagree, Sam.
Absolutely not. I'm not going to disagree at all. No, it's difficult, isn't it? Theatre is expensive, and as such, people don't want to pay for it. So to then create it within the budgets of what people actually want to pay is very difficult. And that obviously is one driving force behind keeping things simple and keeping things easy. But equally, you said the romanticism of it, for a child to think that trunk in front of me, that suitcase, that small box, a world is going to come from there. That's unbelievable. Just an incredible idea.
It's wonderful because children do believe in magic. For them, it's totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then when we get a bit older, all the cynicism starts to sort of hit.
Drew would know more about that than us, Joe. Drew's been old for far longer.
But not cynical. Not cynical. No, I was going to ask. I mean, it's a brilliant idea, and we've spoken to a couple of people who work in TIE, and you have that concept, and you think this is going to work. How do you get that? I mean, I know it's difficult nowadays with school budgets and trust budgets, etc., etc. Are you fulfilling a need, or do you go, we've got this? How will it work? Do you work within curriculums and that? It always interests me how, because we know, to produce a play, you go to a theatre, you go, I've got this idea, bang. But with TIE, it's incredibly difficult because you're working under financial constraints, and
Well, I wish they had a list, and they said these are the exact things we're all studying. But the thing is, I think it's a good thing that the curriculum's not completely set, and every child in Britain isn't learning exactly the same thing. But it was just a punt. starting with the Great Fire of London, and that sort of works. And then, and we get a bit of work with the other shows. But it's, a lot of it is just an expensive punt. And I mean, as is the way with most businesses. And the thing is, you've kind of got to be, especially with something like this, because even with just a couple of actors and going to schools, the overheads can be quite large. So you've got to be kind of quite successful quite quickly. So I mean, we can have a whole discussion about business if you like. But yeah, you really do. And luckily, it just sort of took off, and I started acting in it myself. And then I just had one other person, and we just went around the country and just sort of, grew it like that. And now we've got four crews and the Romans, which is great, and we've got, I think, over 100 schools already this term, which is, it's awesome. Yeah. And all over the country. I'm really pleased with what's happened. To me, it's a bit sort of, I don't know, it's inexplicable what's happened. I think they're great plays. They're really fun and engaging. I hope that they are. I think that they are.
Well, you keep getting booked, so there's positives to it. And just to reiterate, that's schools rebooking for the years. As the years go by, they will go, right, last year the year fours did this. We want this year's year fours to do it as well because it was so great. So
exactly. Yeah, we've had about 3 years, and 3 years, and most schools have rebooked. So yeah, it's going great. And I'm on my new one. I'm writing World War II now.
That was going to be my next question, because obviously I've sort of got an inside view on it because I'm part of one of the shows, learning another one of the shows, and know the company. But what is next? Where do you want to take it? So you're writing another show. Do you have others sort of that you might want to do?
I'm thinking global domination, basically. Right. Just trunk theatre everywhere. I don't know. I don't know. But it's all just bit by bit. But I'm writing a new show, which is World War II. But obviously, there's got to be a different thing, because this is for slightly older children, and it's a much more serious matter. And not enough time has gone on that I can take the piss out of the whole thing. There's still people alive who are in World War II, my grandmother being one of them. Obviously, the Great Fire of London is a fairly serious happening, and, the Romans, lots of people died, but this is, hundreds and thousands of years ago. Yeah. Whereas, this is 80 something years ago. So I've got to make it a bit more serious. And also, I think it's really interesting about the way children develop and how we have to relate to them as they develop. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the sort of cynicism's creeping in, and theatre's so confronting. It's not like watching a film where all the characters are like this. In theatre, all the characters are like this, and they're talking directly to you, which I suppose is why theatre's quite a good political tool. I could go on for a long time what I think about the politics in the UK theatre scene and the world's theatre scene in general. But it's a good, as I say, it's a confronting thing. So that's kind of when children are closing themselves in a bit and becoming a bit more secretive, and they're starting to go through puberty and all of that. You've got to find a kind of safer way to engage with them, I guess, so they don't feel that they're on their own and left out and embarrassed, I guess, because I don't think there's any more embarrassing time in our lives than when we start going through puberty, probably.
It's a kind of trust thing, isn't it, Joe? I mean, it goes because they trust you, but you've also got to trust them to share in that experience. I mean, when adults go to the theatre, we buy our tickets and we sit there and we're all there. But we have mutual consent. We're going to sit in this space for 3 hours and enjoy each other's company and performing and being an audience. But sometimes I've done TIE and you go into a school or go into a space and you think, well, I'm in your space. This is this space every day. You're letting me in and you're going to trust me for this hour or hour and a half, whatever time we're together, to share something and have some fun. But also it's that thing of, and I think it's something that doesn't happen with so much with children now, which is why, we have some of the problems that we do, is that no one trusts them. You know, we're going to have a great time because you look like a great bunch of kids. We're going to enjoy being with you. We're all going to enjoy this. Sit there and let's have some fun. And I think because theatre doesn't go into schools as much, and children aren't, trusted to sit back, learn and accept, and they're being battered all the time, very often because you've all got to sit here, you all got to behave, don't stab anyone. They're actually not, they're not trusted, and they're not being given something.
Is it a new thing, this lack of trust in children, or do you think there's always sort of been there?
I think it's newer. I think the mutual lack of trust, because for me, we used to get, when I was a kid, when I was around about 10, 12, we'd get shows coming in and we go, great, this is amazing, fantastic. No cynicism. But then there was all that, that now it's kind of like, oh, great, so it's just a couple of hours off. We don't have to do nothing. We just sit here. It's not seen as I don't think education itself is seen as a gift, as something joyous. So when you add something on top, I think kids sit there and go, why are you doing this? What do you want from me? Rather than, thank you very much. Isn't this great? Let's all have a good time. And I think that cynicism that's entered in, and that slight sort of distrust, both ways, that's why I think, like you say, the immediacy of theatre, when you capture a group of children or a group of young adults, and there's that thing where when they start to I love it when schools, when you do stuff in schools and kids shuffle forward on their backsides.
Yes. Yeah.
That moment you think, got 'em. It's when they shift back and you think, you see them do that and you go, okay, what's the vibe here? But when they shuffle forward on their backsides and you've got them, or their chairs or whatever, then and then that barrier is broken down.
I think part of the issue possibly as well is that a lot of these children have never seen theatre. They've never been to the theatre. Yeah. And I've had lots of teachers say that to me about many of the students in their classes. And I had an electrician at my house the other day, and he was talking to me about what I did. And he said he had young children, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to take them to the theatre, but it's too expensive." And I thought, well, you've got a point. It is expensive. I think probably theatre is necessarily expensive most of the time, but also I think that people kind of spend their money on what they want to spend their money on. I think football tickets are probably really expensive, but it's just that I think what theatre kind of is kind of a bit elitist, and it's, if not for the bourgeoisie, it's kind of for the liberal elite a lot of the time. And you've only got to go to the National to see the kind of people who are all watching the theatre there. And I want theatre to be something for everybody. I want theatre to be like street food. I want it to be cheap, tasty, hot, quick, out there, everybody, just every kind of person all melded together. It's exciting and it's fresh, and it's because I was talking about theatre as a good sort of political tool. Then it's quick, and you can bosh out kind of every new political topic that's going on. Whereas I think if you're spending 3 months rehearsing something and then somebody's been writing it for X amount of time, by the time that thing's gone to the stage, all the people, the topic's kind of passed. It's not really there anymore. This is very off topic because it's nothing to do with what we do. We put on historical plays for children.
Yeah, I was going to say it's difficult to talk about trying to stay current when our subject's like 2,000 years old. Is all I'm doing currently. But no, I think you're absolutely right. Though I think that there is such a value to theatre, be that politically, in an education sense, or from entertainment. I mean, as you know, we started this podcast back during the Unwelcome Guest because we felt the absence of theatre and performance, and the world missed it sorely. And it is such a valuable part of life and growing up and learning and education. And I don't just mean from a school point of view, but you can go to the theatre as an adult and learn something about life, a lifestyle, a choice, or a certain way of being that you might not see based on where you're from or what you're immersed with all the time. which is another important thing, and why it is a shame that, as you say, theatre has become slightly elitist, and that a lot of children maybe don't have the access to it that they should. And do you think potentially, and this is sort of open question to both of you, because we've all been involved in multiple levels of educational theatre. So if I was to compare, I worked with Callum Durrant, Reflex Theatre, great friend of the podcast. We went out to senior schools and did topics about consent, drugs, alcohol, substance abuse to sort of 14, 15, 16 year olds. And then obviously working with you, Joe, we're sort of like 7, 8, 9 year olds, much smaller children. Do you think if they haven't had that opportunity as young people to see theatre, that it's then more difficult to get them on board when theatre is that older sort of style? And same thing to you, Drew. Do you either of you sort of feel that way about it, do you think?
Yes, no, I don't know. I think it's obviously easier to be open to things if you've already experienced something similar to it. I think going into schools and talking about consent and drug abuse and oh God, you're a hero. That's yeah, so 14, 15 year olds. Also, I would say by the time we've got to that age, it's useless. The formative years of a child, well, the formative years of a child really are 1 to 7, basically, 0 to 7. And obviously we can't be talking to them about, consent and drugs when they're that young.
No.
But the problem is that by the time they've got to that age, 14, 15, they're lost. People are like cement, we get harder and harder as time goes on, and then it's harder and harder to get through to us. And, what you're talking about is kind of getting through to people, I guess. And that's so much easier when they're a child. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, that you've got to change the format of what you're doing. You've got to be a bit cleverer, I guess, and a bit subtler, because they're smart and they don't want to be. They want to feel like adults, right? And they don't want to be condescended to. So yeah, you've got to be really, really careful with that age group. That's why I do children. There's so much more fun. It's easy. We can just be bright and colourful and say silly things and put on silly accents.
Yeah.
Even the opportunity to do that from that younger age group is tricky now, because children are with social media and the immediacy of the world. That innocence, that innocent time, that time where their imaginations are open, and they're not, to use my word of the day, cynical. That opportunity is becoming less and less, because that they are older, younger. If that makes sense. And like you say, when they get to sort of 14, 15, the chance to make them think, they're already experiencing that. They're already in that world. Some people, 14, 15, a lot of children, they're having sex, they're taking drugs, they're dealing with violence on the streets. That's their world. To walk into that and go, now this is bad, and they're all sitting there going, we know, we're doing it. It's like, fuck off with your lecture.
Yeah.
We know, what a lot of those kids are sitting there going is, don't sit here telling me that, what are you going to do about it? What are you as a bunch of adults going to do to change my life? Rather than, don't put it on my shoulders. It's the world you've created for us to exist in.
Exactly, because it's indirect, isn't it? Especially with something like knife crime, I suppose. That's you can't deal with it in a direct way very well like that. Going and speaking to a bunch of people isn't really going to work. What's going to work is if you create opportunities for people, create opportunities for children, and feeling like they have something to do and something to live for. And
the other thing is, I was going to say that is also important. Is it goes back to not only what you're saying about within the subject matter, whatever it is, it's actually just giving those people something that we've all experienced, which turned us into performers and creatives, is a moment of joy. That it doesn't matter whether they're actually learning anything; they're just sitting in a space, having a good time, and there is nothing wrong with that. And if a little bit of information and a little bit of education seeps in, so much the better. But for a lot of children, actually just sitting in a space, the weight of the world taking, which is what entertainment is what we go and watch a movie for or turn the television on at night, is just to go, right, I've done that shit, I just want to be entertained. For children have that need as well, as as we all know. And it's, just to watch a bunch of kids they're watching I don't know, whatever we're doing, bullying, the Romans, World War II. I mean, I did stuff on kids having difficulty reading. I did plays on recycling and all that sort. Whatever they're supposed to be learning, for want of a better word. If they're just having a good time, that to me is important, and that's when we get them into the theatre. To tie back what we were saying about grabbing audiences early.
Absolutely. And it's so much easier for them to learn if they are entertained. I feel like sometimes like entertainment's a dirty word,
Yeah.
People think it's invalid or something, and also I think sometimes people don't get something because it's dreadfully boring, like a piece of theatre, and they've watched it and they think because they're bored that it's how it's supposed to be, and they haven't got something, and that they're not intelligent because they haven't understood what's going on. And we are all in the job of communication. He stumbled over, and. We're all in the job of communication, and if you haven't communicated to the average person, let's say, you haven't done your job, you fucked it up. You've got to make it not simple but accessible. And also, I think with education as well, especially in these topics, I don't need them to remember the nitty-gritty of every topic we're doing. I need them to have the feeling and the sense, and to know what the past was. They don't need to know the specifics, they just need to know the broad color of it, and because that will fill them as a person and save them from ignorance, I guess. It's not terribly important to know the exact moment and the exact date. And I think this is kind of with a lot of other things, like maths, for instance. I think schools get really bogged down with trying to teach everyone really, intricate maths, and a lot of students, all they need is just to really basically know, I don't know, subtract, divide, whatever, and fractions, and they don't need to learn X, Y, Z. I think. Well, I suppose that's why, what do you call it? Like grading classes is quite a good idea.
Yeah. But it's no good knowing about simultaneous equations if you can't balance your bank account, is it? It's like,
Exactly.
You can't work out your shopping bill or stand in a car park going, how do I pay for this?
I think the overwhelming feeling and the message, and certainly what I've always got from being part of Trunk Theatre, is that if you can entertain your audience of relatively young children, and they take something away from that slightly more than just I've had a good time watching, and actually I learnt one little thing, then you've succeeded. And I think that certainly seems to be the target. Joe, it's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you, mate. It's been wonderful, but we're well aware that you've got a very important script to write, because I need to be in that show. So if you don't write it, I can't be in that show. So we are going to let you run on. But again, thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us. It's been eye-opening. It's been entertaining. And hopefully what it's done is given our audiences out there who perhaps don't have a great knowledge of theatre and education a bit more knowledge about it and reason to why we do it, and what its real value in the entertainment world. So
I hope so, Sam. I mean, I think I've just garbled on for a few minutes, but hopefully there's something, someone will gain something out of it somewhere. I don't know. I hope.
It's Joe. Could you garble on for a few more minutes? Because as you know, we like to tag the end of our interviews, our guests, with a little moment of levity or seriousness, but a little story, if you would, to end this wonderful time we've spent together. I'll hand over to you, mate. Away you go.
I'll tell you a little story, shall I? Okay, so I'll tell you a story about an audition I once had when I was about 24, and I can't remember what the film was called, but it was a horror film, and it was set sort of now, and it was about this kind of monster that had been, I don't know, kind of dormant in a bunker since World War II. And he'd sort of woken up, and I think he was in Germany, and he'd woken up and he thought they were all Nazis, right? And he's sort of this kind of like monster creature, and he goes around like destroying Nazis, or what he thinks are Nazis. And it was entirely absurd. And basically, my then agent a horrible little woman. I had said to her, I need something, please, and kind of thing. And when agents kind of they panic and get you anything. Anyway, she got me this audition, and it's it seemed kind of funny, and I like horror films, so I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. But then I got to the audition room, and I was surrounded by like these 6'5" blokes, like big beardy blokes, like proper geezers. And then there's me sitting there, and it's like, oh, so is anyone else from West Sussex? Hello. And and then sort of getting called in one by one. And then I got called in, and this director, this big fat bloke, and he said, right, all I want you to do is just strangle me in the floor and call me a Nazi bitch. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I just remember like straddling this this middle-aged man and like strangling him and just going, you Nazi bitch, Nazi bitch. And then he's sort of trying to direct me from the floor, and he's going, no, louder, Nazi bitch, that's louder, and it was completely absurd. And obviously I didn't get the part, needless to say. But yeah, I think there's, all over the acting world, there's auditions like that. People who just shouldn't be there,
There's a lesson for us all in that, Joe.
Not entirely sure what the lesson is, but there's certainly one in there.
Pick a good agent, I think, is the message. Yeah.
I think we can probably say that on if you look at sort of scope of an episode and topics and like broadness of what we've gone through, we've gone from sweet, innocent children getting some educational theatre to Nazi bitch monsters. And everything in between.
Exactly.
There's something for everyone in this episode. That is absolutely for sure. Joe, as I said before, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. As much as it is a pleasure working with you. So thank you so much for giving up your time today.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.
And anyone out there listening that is that happens to work in a school, or their school is looking for educational theatre, get in contact with Joe. Trunk Theatre, brilliant. If the subject you want to do hasn't been mentioned, let him know and he'll write something for it, because
Exactly.
he's got nothing else to do, so we might as well keep him busy. But yeah, no, Joe, it's been brilliant, mate. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy writing about World War II. Don't get influenced by that audition, though. Because...
I might not add that in, though.
No.
See you later, mate. Take it easy.
Take care, Joe. Bye-bye, mate.
Bye-bye.
And off he goes. Hopefully not to pack himself in a trunk, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because we spoke to other people involved in TIE and another angle, another way of looking at how important that work is, from not only a professional point of view, but a personal point of view, from, how Joe's journey took him from one thing to another to end up in, probably, for want of a better phrase, where he should be, where he's doing so much good and really enjoying it. You can see, if you watch this on, watching it on YouTube, you will be able to see the joy in his face and the enjoyment he gets from doing what he's doing, which is brilliant.
He's just a hugely passionate man. He loves what he does, loves creating the theatre. I mean, he says he quit acting, but equally he does the shows as well, and he's fabulous in them. But his main passion, as we can now see, lies in the writing and creation of these shows. And beyond it's not just writing a script, it's working out the games and the activities that are within them, thinking about what elements of the historical things we're dealing with actually need to be in there, because you could go on for hours and hours and hours about all sorts of different topics, but it's working out what are the main, I guess, building blocks, what are the integral parts of the story, which bits do people really need to know to give a decent understanding. And yeah, he's superb at it, and just genuinely a lovely guy to work with. A lovely guy. Just saying it, angling for a pay rise, although that'd always be welcome. No, a brilliant guest, a brilliant performer and writer. But we can say, and no offence intended, not a good Nazi monster.
Not a good Nazi
not a
monster.
good monster that kills, Nazi killing monster, apparently. Or doesn't mean he's not good, actually. He might have been a good one. He just wasn't as good as one of the other guys that went for it, I think.
Damn, leave it.
I need to drop the topic.
Leave it.
That's probably the most we're ever going to mention certain words in this podcast.
I think probably
the most
so.
we've mentioned in the previous 170 whatever episodes as well. But speaking of other episodes, we should probably do another one next week, shouldn't we, mate?
Go on, mate. Yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah. But it will be just thee and me. I'm sure it's not as entertaining for people, but maybe they'll tune in anyway. You never know.
Well, we'll find something to natter on about, I'm sure. Yeah. But something will happen. Something will crop up. You know.
There's always lots going on in this bloody industry.
Damn right, mate. Damn right.
It's a shame it's not always work coming our direction that's the thing that's going on. There's lots of that, but it would always be nice to have a bit more of it. So
this is true.
Have you got anything fun coming up, mate?
No, actually, I'm gonna sort of I've got a little bit of writing and stuff to do myself, so I'm just gonna
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's gonna quieten down a little bit now.
Yeah, focusing on things turning over, well, quietening down long enough before you then go mental with your half-term stuff. So
this is true.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
But well, until that time, mate, I'm going to raise my beer to you.
Up me coffee.
Yeah, up your coffee, mate.
Yeah.
Weird ending. Just go with it.
Go with it.
Everyone that has been listening and watching, thank you so much for being here with us. We will be back next week, so try and join us then as well. See you later on. Cheers.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.